Please, Erin Leitheiser, welcome, and you're most welcome to present your work.
Thank you very much. So I'm very pleased today to present to you my paper, How Domestic Contexts Shape International Private Governance, the case of the European Accord and American Alliance in Bangladesh. So what is this paper about? So the paper looks at the influence of domestic contexts on how companies practice CSR abroad in their supply chains. There's a well-established literature showing that at home, companies tend to mirror or complement institutional structures. But what does that mean for when they practice CSR abroad? Will companies choose to align with the institutions and structures of their home or their host country? There's been some work looking at how market-facing standards and certifications, such as the FSC or the SFI certifications in forestry, tend to show national preferences. But this paper looks at core CSR practices deep within the supply chain by drawing on the case of two dueling private governance initiatives in Bangladesh. So what's the main argument here? Well, the study explored two factory safety initiatives in the Bangladesh ready-made garment sector. The Alliance, which was made up exclusively of Canadian and American brands, and the Accord, which was dominated by European brands, but also had a small handful of American brands as members. In looking at these, it identified three major factors which shaped companies' decisions about how they design the initiatives and which ones they ultimately ended up choosing to join. First, and in line with prior research, the study found that companies sought to recreate familiar structures and dynamics from their home environments when designing private governance abroad. This was particularly true for the organizational forms that they chose, monitoring enforcement mechanisms that they deployed, and their orientation towards stakeholders. Public authority in this respect shaped companies' initial design and choices. Second, the study found that governments on both sides of the Atlantic played a very active role in influencing companies' choices. So for example, the Swedish government sent memos and held meetings to lobby their apparel companies to join the Accord. On the American side, former US senators championed the alliance publicly, and USAID provided financial support for its activities. So here, public authority played a critical coordination role in shaping companies' behavior. But finally, we get to explaining the crossover American and Canadian brands which joined the European Accord. The study revealed that these were predominantly sportswear brands, which was a category that was targeted heavily by student protests and activists. They conducted retail sit-ins, online petitions, and lots of other activist work to pressure these brands to join the Accord. Many went so far as to threaten to pull all of their merchandise from college bookstores, a huge market for many of these brands, unless they did. So they really pushed American brands to join the Accord. Even so, most of these brands, or at least some of the brands, were very reluctant to do so, which really demonstrates the agency, which sometimes defies the expectations we might have given the public authority and institutional structures. So finally, what's the contribution of this? So consistent with previous studies, this study shows that companies typically choose CSR activities like private governance, which either complement or otherwise familiar from their home environments. However, the study quite powerfully demonstrated the power of intervening variables, such as activist pressure, in really shaping those decisions. So while public authority largely shaped companies' choices, these choices were not path dependent. Rather, companies exercise agency, even within strong institutional environments. And my paper builds a model to help explicate this, demonstrating how public policy and public authority create the constraints within which companies operate, but also their agency within. Thank you.